So let's talk about what is coming in the near future. Because out this morning, we are seeing multiple reports that say disaster awaits. That's not good news. Just the other day, we learned that President Biden has no intention of working with Republicans on their entire agenda. In fact, just yesterday, President Biden vetoed the bill that would block up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness. This was President Biden's doing, but Republicans voted and passed bills in the House and the Senate to block this. Well, President Biden blocked them. This shows that even though the House and the Senate both are on board and want to, pass these bills, President Biden is not going to follow in their footsteps. So, this actually brings up other issues. And part of the reason why this is causing issues is because of a government funding bill that has to be passed by October 1st. This is what is creating major issues, not just for Republicans, but for Democrats as well. Because how do they pass a bill that they cannot come to an agreement on? Again, the negotiations still have to happen. What's going on right now is they're just leaving little crumbs here and there, and mainly through the media, in order to get the other side's perspective. But, like I've said, this is creating problems, and this is why some say disaster awaits. Now, I'm going to get to more on that in just a second. All I ask is if you can spend just 2 seconds, go ahead and hit that like button if you enjoy these daily uploads, and let's get right back to the story. So, we already know the negotiation process for the government funding bill is going to be extremely difficult. And the reason why it's going to be extremely difficult now, not only is because we have a divided Congress, but because of the spending restrictions that have already been set in place due to the debt ceiling bill, okay, that Fiscal Responsibility Act. Now, according to reports, this is just the start of the problems. Because just the other day, House Republicans, which mainly consist of the House Freedom Caucus, they shut down business in the House of Representatives. This actually happened 2 days in a row. But why? Well, this is where things get very interesting. And it has to do with Speaker Kevin McCarthy and how he got elected into a speakership role, but also the debt ceiling bill. Now, the representatives that are blocking the votes that are currently trying to take place, one has to do with, gas ranges. Again, that's for a different video, but what they are doing is they initially helped Speaker Kevin McCarthy, gain his speakership. And they voted in favor of this because, again, some were holding out. But they got him his speakership. And in order to get this, Speaker Kevin McCarthy, he had to make certain promises. And some of those promises just weren't fulfilled in the debt ceiling negotiations. Now, the reason why these weren't fulfilled, or according to multiple reports, is because Speaker Kevin McCarthy promised we would see spending cuts. We didn't see any spending cuts. So because of that, Republicans in the House are saying that no, we did exactly what you wanted us to do. You promised that you would, not just entertain the idea of cuts, but you would see them through, and you didn't do it. So now they're holding up important GOP bills as a result. Now, you probably don't care exactly why they're holding up all these bills, so I'm not going to get into more details on that. But according to the reports just this morning, all of this is starting to set up a very disastrous government funding bill showdown. Okay? Because Republicans are pushing for reduced spending. That we have to reduce spending because we do not want to approve of additional taxes, so we have to reduce spending. But multiple lawmakers question exactly how this spending bill gets passed. They're going to have a very difficult time staying within the confines of the debt ceiling bill. because right now spending for the government for 2024, it has to hold flat for 2024. Okay, we can't increase funding. But multiple government agencies have already stated that they cannot continue without some substantial increase to funding. So our total funding stays flat. But if one agency says, oh, I need additional funding or else we can't continue, guess what that means for the other agencies? They have to see a decrease in order to make up that difference. That's why it's creating a major issue, because which agencies will see an increase versus which ones will we see a decrease in funding, and how will that play out with the American people? Again, we're almost a year away from a presidential election. So cutting funding to agencies and hurting certain parts of the country or certain individuals is not going to hold very well in the presidential elections. Now, keep in mind this government funding bill must pass by October 1st, 2023. If it doesn't, the U.S. government would shut down. Now, reports are saying that the Biden administration doesn't even want to wait until September, or August and September to try to strike a deal. They want to strike a deal very soon. Here's the reason why. The reports are indicating that the Biden administration is currently working on legislation for supplemental funding to Ukraine. Think about that for a second. So right now, we're getting talks of, okay, it's going to be very difficult to get a bill passed for the U.S. government for fiscal year 2024 simply because of the staying within the confines of the debt ceiling bill. But at the same time, the Biden administration is trying to roll out supplemental funding for Ukraine. I know this is going to trigger many people, but the problem with this is, how do we move forward? Because this is going to set up massive problems amongst Republicans as well. Democrats are pushing that, hey, we need to provide more support to Ukraine. That's one thing that we must do. And Republicans are kind of in a tough spot because right now, Republicans are dead set on reducing spending. That's one thing that they've said has to happen. But at the same time, Republicans also insist that we must have a strong military. So how do we have a strong military by cutting spending? Well, you cut spending on other things and you leave funding for the military the same. But at the same time, how can we do all that if we are not helping other countries? This is where it's putting Republicans in a very, it's a very interesting situation. And keep in mind that funding for Ukraine doesn't mean we are actually improving our military. Because we're not funding our military to go to Ukraine. But according to experts, they say this improves Ukraine's military, which in turn is an extension of our own. Because we've helped so much, Ukraine's military would likely jump in if we ever need it. But again, do you see the reason why this is a problem and why experts are saying there's disaster ahead? President Biden just vetoed a bill the other day. This shows that he is willing to veto a bill if he believes it's important and it's going against his agenda. Also, Republicans are willing to block votes on their own bills if they feel like, again, they are not being heard, the speaker is not doing what he's promised to them, and as a result, nothing is going to get done until Speaker Kevin McCarthy follows through on the promises that he made to this group of Republicans. But again, this is why experts are saying disaster awaits.